How's it going, Summoners? My name is Nathaning, and in this video, we're going to be giving you guys some insight as to who are the best top laners in the new patch are. If you're a top lane main or just want to know more about this role, then look no further. These are the strongest champions backed by our analyst feedback as well as statistics. So be sure to hit that sub button and let's hop right into it. To start things off, we have SETT. He was buffed significantly on patch 11.9, and this set him up for success. The increased AD ratios have done wonders as players already had transitioned into squishier builds. Newfound damage has given SETT a good chance at outright beating other top laners in fights. As a rather linear champion, a lot of his value as a pick simply comes down to whether or not he can win a fight. Any buff or nerf affecting his numbers obviously ties directly into his viability as a pick. A buff means that SETT is once again a solid stat check champion. Quickly, he rose up to the top and became the most popular top lane in the game. With nerfs to champions like Darius as well, it looks like SETT isn't giving up the throne anytime soon either. What makes SETT so incredibly strong is that in lane he deals a ton of damage. As the game progresses, he takes advantage of his ultimate's AD scaling, as well as the fact that it scales with his target's maximum HP. Against a tank or a health stacking fighter, this leads to massive damage, and anytime his opponents clump, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Unlike before, he also has access to Stridebreaker this season, which helps him get around a ton of his mobility issues. If you need help countering picks like these, you should definitely consult a coach over at ProGuides.com. They'd love to help you improve your gameplay, and you definitely don't want to miss out. Now, let's get on to our next pick. Last patch, SHEN got one of the biggest buffs in his lifetime on Summoner's Rift. Maximum health ratio was added to his ultimate shield, meaning that as long as you build tank like most players do, you should be able to provide an ally with a giant boost in effective health. This massive shield can obviously save a teammate's life, but it can also be used aggressively. Carries can play with a lot less fear while the ultimate is being channeled, going in for plays that they would otherwise never dream of trying. One issue that SHEN runs into is that he doesn't have a level 6 spike for his own lane. Since his ultimate is all utility, it can sometimes feel underwhelming in comparison to whatever insane power spike his lane opponents hit. However, now the ability is more rewarding than before, being a team player is a much stronger option. Inevitably, your teammates will get caught out in solo queue. However, this massive shield now means that they get a second chance, and it's all thanks to the neighborhood-friendly SHEN. SHEN is so strong because his pre-level 6 is one of the best in the game, and he scales up to become an incredible utility bot. His Q's damage, W's dodge mechanic, and passive shield makes him one of the most potent 1v1 machines. Once his opponents hit level 6, things usually even out, but until then, you can often dominate lane and even push for solo kills against over-aggressive opponents. Next up, we have AATROX. Although he's had his highs and lows, AATROX has been for the most part a very consistent pick. That's true even to this day and contributes heavily to his presence on this list. AATROX's high damage and high sustain makes him a flexible fighter. He's a solid frontliner who can also deal some heavy lifting in regards to his team's damage output. A good AATROX player has incredible agency, especially in teamfights where he shines. His Q and W provide some crowd control, and any enemy that gets caught out by his full combo is either dead or left close to it. As a frontliner, his job is to soak up damage, but you can't leave him alone either. The situation enemies are put into is a tough one, and of course, he also forces opponents to invest gold and healing reduction very early on into the game. This leads people to fall slightly behind in their builds, and it often requires more than one player to build it if a team really wants to guarantee that they apply it during a fight. Although AATROX isn't a champion who wins every single matchup, he does well in a lot of them. Even in losing ones, his mobility and abilities make it possible to win through an outplay or settle for a farm matchup instead. A buffed Gold Drinker also helps him out a bit this patch. Before we move forward, let's talk about the question of the day. What champion do you dislike playing against the most right now? Right now, for me, it's actually Riven. Bad ones are no problem, but once in a while you'll run into a really good one, and the difference is night and day. She has so much mobility, and a short cooldown on her E makes it pretty challenging to trade against her. Let me know your answers in the comments down below. Oh, I also hate Pyke, Yuumi, and LeBlanc, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Next is one of the spiciest picks as of late. Lee Sin top is actually much stronger than most people would believe. In elite levels of play, he ended with around 51% win rate last patch. In Masters Plus, his top lane play rate was a little bit more than half of his jungle play rate. That's actually surprisingly high considering that this would be considered an off role. Lee Sin has received numerous buffs that have led him to become a power pick in the top lane. His ridiculous damage as well as moderate sustain make him a solid top laner that fits right in. What makes Lee Sin a good top laner is the fact that he is stacked. His passive and Q increase his damage output significantly. He provides a slow which definitely helps him punish opponents that overstep their bounds, and his W, like I said, provides sustain. Top laners need sustain since they're ready to fight at any moment. Since they're typically tankier, there's also more value in sustain that won't get you always 100 to 0. So being able to heal back up after a long exchange is invaluable. At level 6, Lee Sin gains access to his ultimate, which has to be one of the highest AD ratios in the game, clocking in at 200%. Even at rank 1 with only Endurance Blade and Maximum Conqueror stacks, it deals a solid amount of damage. The most important part is that it sets up for a free Q right after. It's technically an even bigger spike since Q does more damage based on missing health. Although landing Q can be rather challenging, top level players have had enough practice to understand how to hit the ability amidst a minion wave. It can be rather challenging, but your goal is to continuously move through a fight. Your opponent will likely try to hide behind his minions, and you'll have to continue moving with them. At times, they might even start moving too much, and you can go for auto attacks when they're nervously trying to avoid the ability. Slowing them also makes it possible for you to maneuver around and find that point of the blank angle that you need. Practice helps, so don't worry if you don't get it on your first try. Next on the list is Mordekaiser. Magic damage was previously lacking in the top lane, but over the course of the past few patches, we've been seeing it more and more. Mordekaiser, after a couple of buffs, is now seeing a ton of play and success as a top laner. The only downside is that he isn't as effective in the very high elos. For most players, however, he's a solid pick, illustrated by his over 51% win rate and 10% ban rate. Riftmaker was buffed this patch, meaning that he's definitely off to a good start this cycle. Although the maximum damage bonus went down by a significant amount, it now stacks up faster, and you can also gain a stack for taking damage. This means that when Mordekaiser is trying to get in range of the enemy, he also has an easier time reaching full power before dealing damage. Overall, this should lead to a slight increase in damage output in most situations. Fights would have to go on for a very long time in order for this to be a nerf. Mordekaiser is a solid pick because of his high damage, tankiness, and his iconic ultimate. The ability to single out a target is an amazing one, and is an especially powerful way to immediately take the enchanter out during a team fight. I wish Mordekaiser could use his ultimate on me, that way he could take me out. It's been so long. The ultimate can be used creatively. You can instead use it to take out a fed enemy and solve for time, or you can use it to take on an enemy's carry in a 1v1 showdown. Recently buffed, Kayle is a much stronger pick this patch. She not only received a direct buff, but also a price reduction on Ginsu's Rage Blade. As a champion who wants to scale up and take it to the late game, a price reduction is huge. Being able to finish subsequent items faster is a big deal, and of course she benefits a little bit from the buffs to Riftmaker. Although Ginsu's wasn't a popular purchase before, she'll be likely building it more often this patch. Whether we'll see it incorporated into AP builds is debatable, but it's already being used as part of her AD builds. One of Kayle's greatest strengths is that her build is flexible. You can adjust to playstyle as well as your team's needs. Kayle's scaling was made even better this patch. In cases where you'll manage to stall out the game and scale up, you'll be heavily rewarded. Kayle can act as an incredible magic damage threat or a mixed damage threat. Her AD build blends in physical, magic, and even true damage if you build Kraken Slayer. You'll be able to shred through the enemies, and of course, Kayle's ultimate can come in pretty clutch as well. GNAR is another champion who's been a consistent top lane powerhouse. He's been seeing a ton of play at the MSI, and for good reason. Although it's debatable, GNAR feels like he's one of the safest picks in the top lane. He's ranged but still tanky enough to not get blown up by enemies, and it's not like you're playing a glass cannon marksman that gets blown up the moment they miss position once. There's a lot more breathing room, and even if your opponent manages to take out a chunk of your health, you don't have to back away from the turret every single time. It can be difficult to dive Mega GNAR after level 6, meaning that your opponents have to be rather careful in how they approach. A typical marksman will probably die instantly to a dive if they're anywhere below half health. GNAR on the other hand gains a ton of bonus health when transforming, and you're probably better off building tank items as well. As a ranged champion, GNAR dominates enemies when ahead. You have to give him a ton of space, and if you don't, you're bound to get run down by his Q's slow, as well as bonus movement speed from his W. Mega GNAR also makes him a great threat in team fights. Chokes in the jungle are especially dangerous as your whole team can easily get caught off by his ultimate, followed by a second stun from his W. GNAR, unfortunately, if you're planning on playing him, doesn't win every single matchup. However, his Q makes it so that he can safely secure farm even in losing ones. This is why he's been seeing so much play competitively, and it's difficult to completely shut him down out of the game. Next on our list we have SYLAS. At the moment, he's still considered top tier by many high elo players. There's a lot of contributing factors to this, including the fact that he deals magic damage and because there are a lot of really good ultimates in the game. In almost every lobby, there will always be at least one good steal. It's a pretty good time to pick up SYLAS as well. Riot, rather recently, has let us know that Q dodging is going to be seeing higher penalties in the near future. I find this funny, but I really mean it when I say that this is actually an indirect buff to SYLAS. Sometimes a team will have an insane ultimate combo setup like Malphite Orianna or Jarvan and Rumble. SYLAS is a great counter to comps like this, but it's an easy option for enemies to dodge the game and avoid these rough battles. Ultimately, SYLAS is best picked reactively to punish the enemy team comp. If dodging becomes less common, players that recognize the situations will benefit much more heavily from it than before. Aside from his ultimate, SYLAS does very well as a pick. He deals plenty of damage and also has an incredible amount of sustain with his W. Our final top pick is GAREN. His recent nerfs were rather insignificant and he continues to do pretty well. This is especially true in low elo. GAREN, like SETT, is a pretty straightforward champion, and if you can't beat him, that's just how it is. His silence basically dictates the trade. You have to eat a solid portion of his E afterwards, and of course, GAREN can always shield himself with his W. You either have to kite him or be strong enough to take him in a head-on fight. Both of these are rather difficult, especially since Garen has access to Strikebreaker, which allows him to close the distance. Garen performs consistently well due to his mix of strength as a pick and also because he's rather easy to play. That'll be concluding our broken top laners for patch 11.10. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Also, we have a link to join our Discord in the description, so make sure you check that out. It'll be a great time to see you guys on our server and you can personally say hi to me. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.